Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. This is round number 4 of the season, coming to you tonight from Watkins Glen. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth is Charles Michelle, and in the virtual production hall, our old buddy Joshua Wilkie. And now this season has already flown by, Charles. After tonight, we'll officially be halfway through this season. So heading into a track like Watkins Glen, where a small mistake can end in a pretty big incident, do you expect these drivers to maybe take it a little bit easier compared to the opening rounds of the season?
Well, Ron, I think the big answer to that is no. This track is so familiar to most of the, if not all the drivers here. Watkins Glen is one that shows up basically in every series, whether that be prototypes or GT cars or open wheel. It's just used for everything. So most of these, if not all these drivers, have got some laps here, even before we started the practice round earlier. So yeah, no, I think it's going to be pretty hard racing from start to finish.
This track is just an absolute hoot in whatever kind of race car you're driving around here, Charles. We both have experience commentating all manners of races around this track. Formula Fords, Formula Vs, Spec Racer Fords, some MX-5 Cup races, some old Miata Cup races as well. This track just always puts on some really good shows, and here for the 4th round of the season for the Operation eMotorsports Racing League, I'm sure tonight is going to be no different. So as these LMP2 drivers embark to begin this qualifying session, I think it's about high time that we talk about the namesakes of this series and talk about Operation Motorsports, which is a veteran-led and operated 501c3 nonprofit foundation based in Raleigh, North Carolina and Bryan, Ontario, Canada, serving American and Canadian service members and veterans. Operation Motorsports is based on 3 core values: team, identity, and purpose, and supports the recovery of medically retiring or retired service members affected by military service through motorsports opportunities. Operation Motorsports' motto is one at a time. So if you ever see hashtag one at a time on social media, now you know the meaning behind that wonderful hashtag, supporting a wonderful cause and supporting veterans as well. Veteran recovery opportunities, utilizing motorsports opportunities, veteran recovery opportunities that instill a sense of team, identity, and purpose, veteran recovery opportunities through the lens of diversionary therapy, motorsports immersion, and academy programs, veteran recovery through motorsports one at a time. You can visit operationmotorsports.org to learn more. We would like to thank Operation Motorsports for all the fantastic stuff that they do in helping out medically retiring or retired service members. Now, a lot of the drivers that we have in this series, Charles, are former service members, and you're a former service member yourself, so I feel like it's a little bit off for me to kind of talk about all that Operation Motorsports does, but just based off the racing action we've seen thus far, they're a great organization.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, if, you know, once you spend a little time in their Discord and reading their social media, you know, they've got another big event coming up. There's an event coming up. I think it's on Veterans Day weekend or Remembrance Day weekend if you happen to be in Canada or in Europe. So there's a 24-hour race at Anglesey every year, which is in Wales, and they've always shown themselves well, and they'll have you know, lots of presence there, along with all of the work they do with some of the IMSA teams like Corby Motorsports, just to name one. I'm sure of a few. So yeah, really proud to be a part of the broadcast, and really proud to be part of this little group.
As am I, Charles. It's been fantastic to kind of learn about Operation Motorsports so far this season, and considering we've only had 3 races thus far, it's been fantastic to see the racing action we have as well. And you mentioned Core Auto Sports, and we'll talk about that just a little bit in the not-too-distant future here on this broadcast. But meanwhile, we are in this qualifying session. Of course, the qualifying sessions are open in this series and split up into 2, so it's a 20-minute long qualifying session with the first 10 reserved for the LMP2s, and later on in a couple of minutes time we will see the GT3 competitors hit the racetrack. But right now, with a nice drift heading through the heel of turn number 8, this is Skylar Vickroy in the ZFG Racing number 28 car. He's currently second at the moment in this qualifying session, not terribly far off of Connor Parise, who's currently standing on the provisional pole at the moment. You can see those 2 cars separated by about 0.02 of a second. So you mentioned in the open, Charles, about how this track lends itself to some pretty close racing, considering the familiarity that a lot of these drivers have with the track. But the gaps in this qualifying session are probably the closest we've seen thus far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't surprise me because, like I said, it is a widely used track. So, you know, lots of familiarity amongst the drivers. And so it doesn't surprise me that we've got a pretty tight grouping in amongst these LMP2s. We'll mention that we are using, I think this is the current IndyCar layout, but there's 4 different layouts to Watkins Glen. This is the longest of the layouts. It has the inner loop or the bus stop, depending on how you want to what you want to call it. And it also has the boot section, which is the extension to allow those much faster cars to get out there and race. I know the NASCAR was just there last weekend, and they used the NASCAR layout, which doesn't have the boot, but they still have the inner loop, and you see the short turn there to go to the back stretch. And so yeah, it's you know, like I said, there's lots of different configurations for different car classes. But once again, it's one of those that everybody knows how to drive this track, and so it always makes for really, really great racing.
I like the point that you brought up there a few moments ago, Charles, about everyone feeling comfortable driving around this track. I'll tell you, I think the only previous experience I had driving around this track was, God, I gotta think it was probably in Forza Motorsport 7, driving around that track back when I was in middle school. Ooh, a big snap from Tyler Gilmetz behind the wheel of the number 5 car, the pro beneficiary LMP2 driver, mega sideways coming out of turn number 9. But getting back to the point I was going to mention, even despite the fact that I hadn't driven around this track in too many other platforms, so to speak, don't want to call iRacing a game, otherwise I'm going to have a bunch of people coming after me after this broadcast is said and done. But despite that, I really got a grips to this track very, very quick. It's a classic in the world of American racing. So a lot of these drivers getting the chance to drive around this absolutely wonderful racetrack as we slowly come to a close in this part of the qualifying session. Currently 7 minutes, a tick over 7 minutes on the clock at the moment. It's still Connor Parise on the provisional pole. Skylar Vickroy slotting in behind in P2. Meanwhile, for the 2 pro beneficiary LMP2 drivers, it's Greg Meismer and Tyler Gilmetz currently qualified in P3 and P4 overall. So we'll see if that order possibly changes. Big moment from Meismer. That was heading through the heel of turn number 8. That's another challenging corner. Turn 8 and 9 are just so hard around this racetrack, which is really saying something because there's a whole lot of challenging corners around here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the first thing that most people think about as far as the challenge is the bus stop, the inner loop. Just because of the angles you have to attack those corners with. And, you know, and once you get into traffic, it just makes it that much more difficult. But turn 9 for me has always just been a monster, because that is the corner that the long layout and the short layout kind of come together. So the cambering is a little weird. You just really have to find the sweet spot in that apex. Otherwise, as you saw a little bit ago, you have a real tendency to just kind of lose the rear end of the car because of the way the track camber changes. It just makes it a very, very difficult corner. Turn 8, you know, the change that we had recently with, or say recently, it's been over a year now, with the Watkins Glen layout where they now got concrete or tarmac out there as opposed to grass, makes it a little bit easier to kind of recover the car if you just take it too hot. And this is another one of those little corners. I think this is turn 7. It's just that's the toe, I believe, and just one of those. It's another one of those that you just got to get your throttle right as we come down here into 8, and you can see all that runoff on the outside there. As we see Vic Roy just kind of trundling his way around. Looks like he's getting ready to do one more hot lap before the end of qualifying, and I don't think he's going to make it. I think we're already within the last minute, so I don't think that last lap is going to count. So that may be job done for him. We'll see if Paris here can get back around for one more lap before that 10-minute mark is over.
Well, last time by, Connor Paris actually improved on his provisional pole time to go to 1 minute 31.5. So improving on that time even more. There you can see the whole time, a 1:31.580. So big improvement from Paris, extending that gap now to about 0.4 of a second, and full commitment heading through the second to last corner of turn number 10. Connor Paris, the driver of the number 11 Nitro Circus Sim Racing car, gonna cross the line now. Is it an improvement from Paris? It is not. Still pretty quick lap time, and as he tows it back to pit lane, that will do it from the LMP2 section of that qualifying session that we're still in the midst of right now. The GT3 cars now hitting the road, so Connor Paris going to snag the overall pole. He won the second race of the season at Road America just 2 weeks ago. That's so far his only victory thus far this season, should be noted, in the Pro LMP2 category. We have had 3 different winners for 3 different races. Skylar Vickeroy, who's going to be starting this race in second. He was the driver that won the opening race of the season at Daytona. Then Connor Paris took the checkered flag at Road America for the second round, and then for the third round just 1 week ago at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It was Hunter Reeve, who's actually not with us, who took the checkered flag in the Pro LMP2 class. But as you can see, the field hitting the track at the moment. As these drivers get warmed up, they're going to be acclimatized. So one new feature, that being the new McLaren. Didn't have it last week, didn't have it for the first 3 rounds of the season, but it's here now, and that thing is looking slick.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a nice looking car. They finally got the go-ahead from McLaren to go ahead and release it. And so we've got it, and we've got 3 takers have changed their cars, and you see Bradley Beeman on the screen there. The very snazzy paint scheme. Also, I believe John Hicks and Chad Sosnowski, I think if I'm pronouncing that properly, probably not, but apologies, Chad. So yeah, so we've got 3 McLarens in the field. Strangely enough, nobody switched over to the Lamborghini, so we still don't have a Lambo, but now we do have 3 McLarens to add to the grid, and I think that makes a total of 8 different car types in that class. I have to go back and count, but it's either 7 or 8. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the McLaren. I've heard the McLaren rides really well, pretty stable car. So we'll see how it compares to the most recent additions, the Corvette and Mustang, along with all the other cars that are going to be out here on the track.
Okay. Actually getting word from our producer Josh there a few moments ago that there's now 9 different GT3 cars in iRacing. That is absolutely insane. Yeah, really good to have just a wide variety of GT3 cars, because I remember just a matter of that 1 year ago, there not being too many GT3 cars. I took a small little break from iRacing. Full transparency, folks. I used to have all of my stuff set up in my living room downstairs. Then I had to move it all up into my bedroom, and I didn't have any place for my sim rig, so I kind of cut my iRacing subscription for about 6 months. And when I re-upped it last year, very early last year, mind you, all of the GT3 cars that I had purchased back in the day were all turned into legacy content. I had the original Audi and the original Mercedes. They've now been rescanned. We also have the brand new Ferrari that came out last year. Of course, the brand new McLaren, the Corvette, the Mustang. It's just been awesome to see the revitalization of GT3 racing in the world of iRacing. But as these drivers begin their qualifying sessions and start up their first qualifying laps, it's Corby, one of the first drivers to set a time. He's currently the highest qualifying GT3, and he's just been so impressive this season in the number 3 car. But as we wait for these drivers to get a bit of a groove on, I think we should talk about a point that we mentioned towards the beginning of the LMP2 session, talking about one of the fantastic partners that we have here from Operation Motorsports. CEO is actually a driver that won an IMSA race in an LMP2 car around here, that being George Kurtz, and that being CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is a proud partner with Operation Motorsports to advance their mission of empowering military veterans through motorsports. Their support extends far beyond traditional funding, addressing critical business needs and enabling Operation Motorsports to focus on key engagements, outreach, and expanding veteran opportunities. This foundational support ensures that Operation Motorsports can effectively deliver its programs and create meaningful experiences for veterans in the racing world. Additionally, this partnership facilitates the integration, there we go, second time's a charm. Let me start that one from the beginning. Additionally, this partnership facilitates the integration of veterans in prominent roles within IMSA and RSO, including crew member positions and positions in marketing teams. CrowdStrike also engages in employee resource groups and volunteers in supporting Operation Motorsports at various SRO races and contributing to the building and distribution of veteran and family care packages. This collaborative effort enriches the motorsports community while providing valuable career and support opportunities for veterans. We would like to thank CrowdStrike for being one of the wonderful partners with Operation Motorsports, and it's been a running joke so far this season that I always forget the CEO's name. It's George Kurtz, and he won in LMP2 in an IMSA race, I believe back in 2023, so he is a pretty speedy driver whenever he's running in real life, and it's always nice to see some characters, shall we say, get involved in the world of motorsports. I think we shared this small little fun fact a while ago, but like I said, Alice Cooper, that is not the name of the gentleman I am thinking of.
Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson, there we go. Brian Johnson running in the Rolex 24 back in 2012. That was a very strange fun fact that I learned a couple of weeks ago whilst this series was ongoing. But as this qualifying session is ongoing, lots of drivers saying some qualifying times. You want to give us a rundown, Charles?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Corby is still out in front with a good lap. He's about 4/10 up over Ian Carney and Bradley Beeman. Tyler Manning is also about 4/10 back. Ty Schuring, Russell Elizondo are another 10th or so. So it's shaping up to be another Corby and everybody else, but we'll see. So, but Carney again having another really good qualifying session. He did so last week as well, to be the high beneficiary in P2 in the GT3 class. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a really good. The lap times are really, really tight toward the front of the GT3 field. We've got, I think, let's say, 13 cars within a second of Ole. So shaping up to be a really good battle here at Watkins Glen.
Corby has been absolutely dominant thus far. He has scored a victory in every single race that we've had thus far this season. Has actually scored the most amount of points out of anybody in this series. Sadly, we cannot bring the championship points to you on these broadcast, but I can assure you that Corby has just been, he's been a force to be reckoned with. He has pretty much been possessed so far this season. He has been ludicrously quick, and he's going to try and continue that form. While the only Mercedes on the grid with this series, there's only one more, that being Anthony Calvi, who's yet to set a qualifying time. So the open driver currently slotted in 29th as it stands at the moment with no qualifying time on the board. However, he is on track at the moment, and he may set one in the next few moments. But Corby dominant in this series thus far. He's the only driver that has had a completely clean record. The driver that's gotten the closest to him is actually Tyler Gomet in the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 class. He went 2 for 2 in the first 2 races of this season. However, Gregory Meismer ended up taking the victory in class last time out at CTMP. So Corby stands alone as one of the only drivers with a clean record thus far this season. The real question is, will he be able to keep that record going and coming through with the 4th race of the season? Considering that the gap as it stands at the moment is probably one of the smallest that we've seen thus far for all.
Yeah, it really is. It's down now to, I think, 1,500 a second between him and now Tyler Manning, who is up P2. Slots Carney down in 3rd, still leading the beneficiary class. So, yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a pretty good race. Now, I said that last then Corby decided to go out and win by 20 seconds. So I'm hoping that this time, when I say it looks like it's going to be a pretty good race, that we actually have a pretty good race and a good battle for the lead at some point in time during this.
I mean, in the world of racing, reverse psychology is usually a big tactic that drivers use against each other. So I think here in the commentary booth, we need to do like a reverse commentator shinks. Yeah, I think Corby is absolutely going to run away with it. He's going to be able to take the checkered flag and drive all the way down to the city of Philadelphia to pick up a cheesesteak by the time everything is said and done. So with that out of the way, we can move on and talk about some of the other drivers in this qualifying session. This is Russell Elanzado in the Crazy Horse Racing number 101 car. He's currently 10th in this qualifying session at a 145.086, and just knocking on the door of that top 5 in class. We'll see if he can have any sort of improvement between now and the end of the session. He only needs to cut his time by a 10th to jump ahead of Ty Schuring to actually improve on that spot, but he will not have the time, as I believe the checkered flag is already out in this GT3 qualifying session. I'll tell you what, time flies when you're having fun. Complete difference, really, between the LMP2 qualifying session, which had 4 cars occupying this racetrack, and GT3s, where nobody really has any area of the track to themselves.
Yeah, exactly right. The first lap is going to be crucial for a good race for these GT3 cars, just because cold tires, that first time down from the start of the race all the way through the bus stop is just going to be so tight. The battles through the S's, that's what we're going to have. That's going to be a sticking point that we're going to have to really look out for. I've seen some horrendous crashes through there, not just with GT cars, but with all types of cars going through the S's on lap 1 with cold tires, trying to go side by side too wide. They're just, for whatever reason, it almost creates like a funnel effect and just can't quite seem to get them all through there. So we'll have to see how well these GT drivers cope with that.
I have been in race control for some starts around this racetrack where there were some pretty big pileups. I think one of those pileups even got clipped here on Apex Racing TV and was used as a YouTube short or an Instagram reel or a TikTok, whatever it may be. That was a pretty hectic start, and I remember us in race control kind of running around like we were chickens with our heads cut off pretty much, but nevertheless, this qualifying session slowly drawing to a close. Only a few more cars left out there on the racetrack. Here's Matthew Ayotte in the TFG Racing number 2 Audi. And I don't have too much else to say. He's only 18th overall in this qualifying session. Mid-pack in the GT3s. The mid-pack in the GT3 start is going to be quite chaotic. I will mention at the start of this, I rarely, if ever, talk about my real-life racing endeavors that I used to be involved in from 2013 all the way up until 2023, when I had to give out because my back pretty much got turned into dust I used to run the number 2, so if I want to keep that number going live, I will definitely be cheering with Matthew Ayotte. Of course, here on Apex Racing TV, we are completely impartial, so I will blank that number out of my collective memory. About this qualifying session now coming to a close. All the cars have been yoinked back to pit lane. That's a very strange word. I'm not sure if that's entirely professional language, or I'm not really sure the best way to describe the word yoinked being used on a broadcast, but nevertheless, the field now lining up on the starting grid to begin this warm-up lap, and here is that starting grid. Connor Parise going to be leading the field to green, the highest qualifying LMP2 car. He's going to be starting from the overall pole in the Pro LMP2 class. As Pro LMP2 competitor, Skylar Vickroy starting alongside Gregory Meisber in the Pro Beneficiary category. He's going to be starting in third with another Pro Ben driver, that being Tyler Gilmet, starting this race in P4. That's going to be Kobe All in P5, the highest starting GT3 competitor. Tyler Manning in lucky number 13. He's not going to be starting this race in 13th. He's just in the number 13 car starting this race in P6. And then looking in 7th, we have a driver whose name is currently getting blocked by my track map at the moment on my screen. That is Ian Carney in the number 54 car. He's going to be starting alongside Bradley Beeman in that brand new McLaren. And running at your top 10 is going to be some drivers whose names that we can't see at the moment. Put a bit too much WD-40 on the SDK graphics that we have here, so they're very slippery at the moment. There we go. Ty Schuring and Russell Elizondo going to run at your top 10.
All right. Starting in 11th, we've got Josh Shelps. Tyler Beeman starts in 12th. G. Kelly in 13th. Chad Sosnowski in 14th. Jacob Little 15th. Rick Haslett 16th. Brandon Leonard in 17th, Matt Ayotte in 18th, Brandon Peo in 19th, Dan Fendick in 20th, Tanner Masters in 21st, Jason McSparron in 22nd, Luis Rios in 23rd, John Hicks in 24th, Dave Bell in 25th, Rui Pereira in 26th, Richard Davenport 27th, Jake Porter 28th, Anthony Calvi 29th, Charles St. Pierre in 30th, and rounding out our 32-car grid, we have Tyler Reed and Elliott Whitfield.
Alrighty, there we go. 32 cars taking to the start of this race. 32 cars around this track, which is old school in its design, but still a little bit on the lengthy end at 3.45 miles. So there is going to be a decent amount of real estate for these drivers to try and work with as they advance their way through this race. And after that, I will use this as a very bad segue and talk about one of the other fantastic partners here at Operation Motorsports, that being Advanced Sim Racing, because on top of the valued support from CrowdStrike, Advanced Sim Racing is committed to supporting Operation Motorsports through generous contributions to their fundraising efforts in programs. In 2023, ASR donated a high-quality sim rig to Operation Motorsports Giving Tuesday's online auction, helping them raise funds for their impactful initiatives. Building on this commitment, ASR is pleased to contribute 2 additional sim rigs to the upcoming 2024 Giving Tuesday auction, further supporting Operation Motorsports' mission to provide veterans with exciting opportunities in the world of motorsports. Furthermore, Advanced Sim Racing has donated gift cards as prizes for the eMotorsports League, advancing the competitive experience and rewarding participants who just so happen to do very well this season. Contributions which really contributions which really reflect ASR's dedication to fostering engagement and growth within the eMotorsports community while supporting the valuable work of Operation Motorsports. We would like to thank ASR for being one of the other fantastic partners that Operation Motorsports has. And what was the word I was saying? Afflect? I'm not really sure if that's entirely a word in any sort of English language dictionary. But nevertheless, with my little bit of a tongue slip a few moments ago notwithstanding, I want to ask you this, Charles, about this race. We've got 45 minutes of racing action coming up, so pit stops to worry about as well. The big thing is, with these races, strategy is a big role, whether it be pit stops or whether it be how they attack the race. So which one do you think is going to be more important, the pit stop strategy or just the strategy these drivers use to try and go about the 45 minutes of racing action they have in front of them?
Well, I think... I think it's going to be pit stop strategy. And it's just because I think we've seen different drivers make mistakes. It's actually cost them positions, podiums, potential wins. So, and there's on the other side, we've seen obviously not just through this series, but other series where a pit stop strategy works out to where you take a win away when it looked like you were going to finish last. So, I think pit stops are always really crucial here. So that pit in and pit out is going to be just fundamental to your success.
Well, those drivers will have to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, they're keeping an eye on the green flag, which is already out. Look at the 3-wide action we have heading into turn number 1. That's going to be the driver that started on the front row all the way up at the very front, albeit the driver that didn't start on the pole, Skylar Vickery, leading them into turn number 1. Meanwhile, in the GT3 field, they're getting the green flag right now, and Corby all going to have a commanding lead off into turn number 1. So the driver shuffling around for position a little bit farther in the back, side by side throughout the field as I flick my pop filter on my microphone. Hopefully that thing got picked up on Apex Racing TV tonight. But as the field heads their way through the S's for the first time, Corby all having a significant lead at the moment. Right behind him is Tyler Manning, the Canadian. Ian Carney currently running at the top 3 in the GT3 category, at least for now. But look at that, Bradley Beeman in that brand new McLaren. Lots of McLarens that we have in this field. We really want to keep our eyes on them to see what they can do in the newest car added into iRacing. If we had any newer cars, we'd have to bring in a micro stock car, and I'm not sure if that would really fit with these GT3 and LMP2 monsters. But at the north end of the field, it's this man, Skylar Vickery, in the 28 car, coming out to a commanding lead at this point. Connor Parise, Tyler Gilmet, and Greg Meismer were 3 wide at the very beginning of this race. Gilmet not getting a very good start. Meismer not getting a good start either, as there's been shuffles in both of the LMP2 classes that we have, with Vickery, who started P2 in the Pro LMP2 category, jumping ahead of Parise, and Gilmet, who started in P2 in the Pro Beneficiary category, jumping ahead of Meismer, who's off the back of a victory 1 week ago at CTMP. I was just going to note the clean start, but I think we just have a moment for Haslett farther in the back of the GT3 field.
Yeah, I think it's Haslett with the incident, so I'm dropping down the order. But yeah, good jump by Vickery, get that lead. He's going to have to do some work to stay out in front, because the draft is pretty strong with these cars, especially down this straight here. So they'll try to work together to make that time up, and it may be a 4-car pack for the majority of the race unless somebody makes a mistake.
I think we have a decent amount of replays to look at the very beginning of this race. Had some drivers running into some trouble, and this, I believe, is a non-existent replay of Piera, who never even took the starts. Not sure exactly what happened to them for them to not able to take the start of this race. That was some very bad grammar from my end. I apologize for that. And that's a spin for the Corvette of Haslett. Resilience Racing number 69 car going for a spin in turn number 8. That was. They're going for a quick little spin, not making any more contact. A simple little mistake, heading through one of the most challenging corners around this racetrack. Can't say I'm entirely surprised that we've already seen multiple drivers get called out by that challenging corner already, and it's certainly not going to be the last either.
Yeah, got to be careful there. Too wide going into that. Great job by Beeman to just stay off the car in front of Elizondo. Yeah, that's one of those corners that just carried a little too much speed and kind of looped the rear. Great job by everybody else to avoid the car in the middle of the track, so everybody can continue racing. And now Hazlett's got a little work to do to make up some time.
I think the biggest pain in the butt when it comes to turn number 8 is really just the braking zone, trying to get that right, where it's a little bit downhill and also a little bit blind as well. Gotta love old school racetracks because they are fantastic to drive around. However, you also gotta hate old school racetracks because it's so easy to make a mistake that can end up costing you big time. But looking through the GT3 field with a wonderful aerial shot that we have over this virtual version of Watkins Glen tonight, the field is still pretty close in that field as it stands currently. Pretty much most of the GT3 field covered by less than 20 seconds. So this is a pretty close start at the moment. And it's still only 9/10 of a second between Ola and Manning. Knowing my luck, I probably just jinxed it, and Ola's going to kick off the afterburners in a couple of seconds' time and extend that gap to the point where he's going to be driving well off into the distance. I'll probably be able to take a road trip to New Hampshire
Yeah, let's hope that Manny can keep up his pace. He's doing a good job so far. So we see the McLaren diving in there into the bus stop. Different lines there. You got to be very careful with that. That inside line is very, very fast. The car on the right, the BMW of Luis Rios, that is the line you want to take. That is the fastest line through there. But of course, you've got those curbs that will do weird things with your car. And if you get too tight on that, you've got a barrier on the inside that will send you squarely into a different barrier on the other side of the track.
It may not be October, it may not even be Halloween, but those curbs are spooky around this racetrack. I've seen plenty of drivers get upset by those, both in real life and in the sim as well. Those drivers are exercising a little bit of caution when dealing with the curbs. Man, I feel like I need to hit the dictionary a little bit more after this broadcast, but nevertheless, the field's still wicking away at the laps. These drivers trying to settle this race into some sort of groove. We haven't had too hectic of a start, however, we do have some battling up and down the field. There's a fight going on between Russell Elizondo and also Beeman, but look at, boy, that's Chad in the number 32 car. The driver from Michigan currently running 12th at the moment. We'll see if he'll try and get a move done on Beeman in the not-too-distant future. Maybe heading into the inner loop. We'll just have to wait and see.
You'll see how this car tows down the straightaway if it's got anything special there. No, it's pretty straightforward. Looks like it does a good job over the curves. Didn't see anything just real special.
Losing a little bit of time.
Yep. And that, it could be driver, that could be car. Obviously, with the new car, you don't have that. Whoa, that is way too wide coming through there. It was a great job of navigating that and getting it back on the track without any other issues.
I'll tell you what, talk about absolute priorities. After that happened a few moments ago, our colleague and producer Josh Wilkie said almost took out our camera. We may have had to send a bill to Chad Sosnowski if he did take out that camera. Speaking of, these drivers going side by side, hang it to turn number 8. If they took out this helicopter camera, I would be really impressed by their ability to do such a thing. But Gene Kelly in the Eternal Racing 778 car, currently running 14th at the moment. He just got a move put on him by the Corvette heading into heel. Not sure what turn number 9 would be called in reference to the rest of that section being called the boot. I guess that would be, it wouldn't be the tongue of the chute.
I always call it. I've always called it the bootstrap. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's the back of the boot. It's got the little loop on it. So that's what I've always called it. Now it hasn't stuck yet. I haven't got everybody else to call it that, but that's what I've made it.
I think if we want to keep the sort of shoe comparisons going, the gravel trap on the outside of the heel should probably be called the shoehorn. We're not in charge of naming the corners around Watkins Glen. We're just talking about this great racing that we have at the moment that may heat up in just a couple of moments. I'm Josh Sepps. It looked like he was going to try and have to defend from a move from Gene Kelly heading into the inner loop. Haven't seen a driver be so bold and audacious to go for a move heading into the corner just yet. However, you look at that from Sheps running really wide, heading through the outer loop. They're going to be side by side now, careening their way down the chute into turn number 6. And look at Gene Kelly on the outside in that 778 car. Meanwhile, right behind Jacob Little, getting a move done. That was a slick move from the driver of the number 74 car to slip his way up into 15. Kelly, meanwhile, got a slick move done as well. Lots of slick moves happening so far in this race, and that's not because we've had an oil spill.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was a great move by Kelly. Just keeping the car tight here through the carousel or the outer loop, depending on how you want to call it, and got a really great run. And was able to stick it on the outside against that Corvette of Sheps and just made it stick out there. Great driving by Kelly.
Yeah, that was a beautiful move, and thankfully for him, he avoided the drama that Sosnowski ran into just a matter of one lap ago and didn't run wide coming out of the corner and nearly take out one of our prized and treasured Apex Racing TV cameras. Meanwhile, the fight between Russell Elizondo continuing on. That's him and Beeman that are going side by side down the start-finish straightaway just a couple of moments ago. And Tyler Beeman in the number 91 car. He already has a victory thus far this season. However, since then, he hasn't really been in contention for a victory since. So looking to try and turn things around as this season approaches the second half. And he may get a move done the next few moments. As Schuring, that's Ty Schuring, I believe, unless that's a lapped car in that Ferrari. Very slow going down the start-finish straightaway. That, I believe, actually may have been a Yote. That was nearly a crash between Sosnowski and that Ferrari heading through the bus stop chicane. That was a near disaster between both of those cars. Not sure who in the world that Ferrari is. I believe they are a lap-down competitor. Schuring's a little bit farther up the road compared to Beeman. There's Sosnowski, and he's currently now, that Ferrari is now in between Sosnowski and Gene Kelly. That is there we go. Charles St. Pierre for the Crazy Racing number 31 car. That was a crazy moment heading through the bus stop chicane.
It really was. You never want to go too wide through there. They managed to get through there, but I think it slowed both of them down quite a bit to be able to get through there safely. I think if I remember correctly, I think St. Pierre actually pit started the race, so he was already 30 seconds down on the first lap. So he's just out, getting some experience running with the rest of the guys. It's just, and just a little touch of the wall there.
A faint little kiss of the wall. That's not going to help out a lot. Look at that. That was an absolute hornet's nest of race cars, and that's again into the wall. That is a Mustang running wide, heading out of the final corner. Not sure who that was with that big moment. Look at Skylar Vickroy, meanwhile, he's leading in the LMP2 field, and he is playing a very dangerous game when it comes to the lap traffic. However, he kind of has to at this point. He needs to go tit for tat with himself and Connor Parise, because those two cars are only covered by a quarter of a second going down the back straightaway. Vickroy and Parise running P1 and P2 overall, and P1 and P2 in the Pro LMP2 category. Both of those cars have a victory, and considering that there's no other drivers looking to try and dethrone them in class, these two drivers looking to do something that no one has done in the Pro LMP2 class yet so far this season, and that is score multiple victories on the season. Vickroy won the opening race at Daytona, and he is playing a dangerous game with this lap traffic. I'll tell you what, Charles, we brought up this point a lot so far this season about the game of chicken when it comes to the LMP2 cars trying to deal with the lap traffic. I feel like this is the most intense game of chicken we've seen thus far, and it may not work out for victory as, oh boy, it may not work out for Vickroy. He may not end up being victorious when everything is said and done, because Parise is right behind him. Those two cars were very close to bump drafting that small little flat out blast between turns 7 and 8. This is a hornet's nest of race cars as these drivers deal with lap traffic.
Yeah, you kind of saw there just why they have to be aggressive, because if they wait too long, it gives the car they're battling with a chance to move in and maybe take a position away. So they have to be at least somewhat aggressive, but maybe not dangerously aggressive. I think that's the struggle they're trying to find right now.
Well, it's definitely a dangerous game that they are playing right now, and even Gregory Meismer had a pretty comfortable lead in the Pro Beneficiary category. Actually, no, he is not running very good in the Pro Beneficiary fight. Started from the pole. However, things haven't really worked out too well for him. As a result, look at that. That's a big crash heading through. Oh, Russell Elizado involved in that. Tyler Beeman, the two Porsches that were battling hard, just got a big bit of drama coming out of the S's. That was heading through turn number 4 onto the back straightaway. Bradley Beeman may have gotten involved in that as well. There you can see the 101 of Russell Elizado in a Crazy Horse racing car. Going to try and pull off the patent-pending New Jersey 578-point turn to get back going in the right direction. However, that car is significantly broken and battered. It is ready for the junkyard, and he is careening his way down the running order. Was running decently inside the top 10 in the GT3 category. However, things just went horribly a few moments ago, and here's the replay to see what exactly went wrong.
Ooh, so that's Beeman against the wall, and Elizondo just with a defensive move to try and avoid him, hits the wall also and comes back across the track. That's such tough luck. But you can just see, oh, what do I do? And just as too much steering input, the car could not handle it. I also saw another car, one of the Corvettes, I think, sideways as well.
That was so unfortunate for the two of them as well. Just two separate incidents, and we're going to be looking again from the 101's perspective.
Yeah, that's why the S's are such a dangerous place, because you see that just one car sideways, and you just have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know if that car is going to stay up against the left side fence, if it's going to go up against, come across the track as it did, and just lost the rear. I think he lifted, and I think that was a Porsche doing Porsche things. I think he kind of lifted going up the hill there and just lost the rear of the car.
As someone who has unfortunately had to drive the Porsche 911 GT3 car in iRacing, I'll tell you that happens quite a lot. I remember doing an open spa practice session in GT3s, and every single time I went through Blanchemont, no matter what the conditions or what the setup, I would always lose it. Maybe that's a little bit of driver error, very good reason why I'm behind the microphone instead of behind the wheel. Still, nevertheless, that Porsche is just evil at times, and sadly, we just saw two drivers get caught out by that horribly. Speaking of getting caught out, Vicroy, he's actually redeemed himself somewhat. That or Paris has actually been caught out by lap traffic a little bit. That gap is still minuscule between the two of them, with only 0.6 of a second between the two drivers running at the very north end of the field. Vicroy and Paris, as I said earlier on in this broadcast, and we'll mention it again when talking about this fight, these two drivers already have one victory thus far this season. The real question is which one of them are going to be the first to make it victory number 2. But I think we're going to take a look to try and see what kind of lap times these drivers are setting at the moment. Last time by, Paris was a little bit quicker than Vicroy, who just set his fastest lap of the race last time by at a 132.928. Paris, you can see there at a 132.878. These drivers clicking away at some pretty good lap times, but I think Paris may have the pace advantage, as we saw in the qualifying session.
I think you may be right, but you know, it's always it's one thing to catch the car in front. It's a whole nother thing to pass the car in front. So I think Vicroy still got the advantage by being in the lead. He can kind of set the pace, and he can be defensive when he needs to. Because this is I mean, there are some places to pass here, but overall it's a pretty tight little track. You have to be very, very patient, very careful, especially through corners like that. Like I said, it's just so easy to lose the car. But I did see they've kind of dropped Guillemette just a little bit, and Meisner is starting to work his way up. He's gaining a little bit of ground, so it may be the open drivers, the open pros battling amongst themselves, and then the two beneficiaries battling amongst themselves to see who's going to get that race win again this week.
Yeah, I think it may be a 2-2 fight in the LMP2 category. Guillemette and Meisner still spread out by a little bit, but I gotta say, last time by, Meisner certainly closing up that gap with a lap time that was about 0.4 quicker than Guillemette. Meanwhile, in the Pro LMP2 side of that LMP2 field, it's still Vicroy in front of Paris. Vicroy, who occasionally called victory, looking to try and grab the victory here at Watkins Glen. However, he has a fight on his hands between himself and Paris. Paris lost the lead at the very beginning, did not get a good start, and then ever since then, things have not really gone too well for him. However, trying to reel in that gap and get back in front of the driver, the number 28 car right in front of him. It should be known that Meisner and Guillemette have actually swapped positions, as we're taking a look at a replay involving Charles St. Pierre. This is heading through turn number 9.
Yeah, he just got too wide through there. That's what I said. It's just a weird camber on that corner, and you've got to be pretty tight on the apex when you're going through there. He was basically off on the opposite side of that, on the NASCAR side of that racing line, and just couldn't keep the rear behind him. Yeah, I'd like to see what happened between Meisner and Guillemette, because it was a second and a half plus, and now there's a pretty like a 7/10 gap now with Meisner in front.
I think that may have happened a couple of laps ago, because last time by there wasn't a significant time loss for Guillemette. Actually, I say that this time by it was at a 135.46, so a pretty significant drop off, it must be said, for Guillemette, and Meisner is the one picking up the pieces as a result. And I can kind of see that just in the corner of my eye. Guillemette had a big curb whack heading through the bus stop chicane, and that hurt him a lot. That was a big moment from Gilman. We're going to ride on board with the driver of the number 5 car. Heading through there. Oh my good Lord, how he kept it out of the barrier is a goddamn miracle.
Yeah, that was crazy. It's a great save by Gilmet. Yeah, the curb just kicked him the wrong way, and it just, you can see when he kind of bounced, the rear end of the car just kind of stepped out. He did a great job to keep that off the arm coat. I mean, fantastic job just to get the car slowed down and kept it off the wall, but lost the position. But you know, he's still only about a half second back, so it's still going to be a battle. He's just going to be in fourth instead of third, and so they'll continue on with the remainder of the race.
Oh, it was a matter of inches between himself and the barrier. That was unbelievable. The fact he managed to keep that out of the barrier, that is a mixture of skill and pure unbridled luck. I feel like Tyler Gomet may have to go out and buy a lottery ticket when everything is said and done from this race. But looking at that battle right now in contact in the GT3 field, that's John Hicks going for a spin, and the driver he made contact with was Fendick. Those two drivers going side by side into turn number 1 at ends in tears. Dan Fendick in that 327 Corvette. He was the driver involved in that incident we just saw a few moments ago. And look at that from Vicroy and Paris coming onto the scene of that. Actually, Gilmet in the beneficiary LMP2 field, currently running 4th overall. He's coming in. Meismer just had a big moment a little bit farther in the back. Nearly got put into the barrier himself. But here's a replay of the incident we just saw in live action, hanging through turn number 1. A little bit of contact between those two. Looked like just hard racing gone desperately wrong. I think those drivers are very lucky they didn't hit the wall.
Yeah, I think it's just that, you know, two different lines going through the corner, and they met at the apex, and you know, just as you said, hard racing. I don't know if I could give fault, but you know, I guess from my perspective, the guy behind has got to say, okay, you know, I can't be hitting the front. But, you know, they are racing, so, you know, we'll let them keep racing. And then we'll see another thing here. We've got Tyler Reed in a Corvette. Whoa!
Oh, that was... I'm not sure who that was in the BMW. They're probably going to need to change of pants after that close call with the stopped car. Reed coming out of the bus stop. That according to our producer, that may have been Dave Bell that just had that very close encounter coming through. Here's Dave Bell in the 313 Bell Motorsports car. He's running 18th at the moment, and here's the replay. So he ran wide himself. Oh boy, you could see a little bit of opposite lock. I think if he was a little bit more sideways, that would have been a multi-car schmozzle. And there's Reed with that damaged Corvette coming in, along with Calvi. So Calvi, I believe, has had a moment of his own accord as well. You can see the front bumper missing off of that Mercedes. It's probably on sale on eBay at the moment. Not sure when this happened for the number 20 car. I think there may have been some extracurricular contact, possibly with Reed. Not sure what in the world happened there with Calvi. He's running down the order and making a pit stop.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I will say that with Reed, it wasn't the inside, it wasn't the entry curb. It was the exit curve that got him all out of alignment, which is, you know, the other ones you have to just, you know, be mindful of. There's a way to take those curbs, and there's a way not to, and obviously he found out the way not to. So very lucky by Hicks and the driver Bell that was in the BMW that just was already kind of offline a little bit, and that actually saved his car from being crunched.
The fight between Vicroy and Paris continues. Meanwhile, Bradley Beamon in the GT3 field has come down pit lane. He's currently classed in 13th at the moment in class. And we'll see him come down pit lane. And here's Tanner Masters, another driver in the GT3 pack. He's off the back of a victory just 1 week ago at CTMP. Currently running 16th at the moment, and coming in right behind him is going to be Jason McSparron. He didn't hit his marks there, didn't overshoot it, he undershot it heading down the pit lane, so that's a small little time loss for him. We'll see how things exit out and how things shake out for him. Jake Porter in the TFG racing car, actually, I believe, just got ahead of Tanner Masters through that round of pit stops. that we are seeing unfold right now. So Guillemette is the only LMP2 to come down pit lane yet, as Victory, Paris, and Meismer have yet to make their one and only scheduled stop in this 45-minute long race, which is flown by as we see Richard Davenport slowed down in the pit lane right now. 24 minutes on the clock currently. This race has absolutely flown by, and the fight between Vicroy and Paris is still going to heat up. I'm not really sure how to make of the fact that Paris has not been able to get that move done. I'm curious, maybe he's doing a little bit of fuel saving, or perhaps he's just having the real difficulty of trying to find a place to pass Vicroy to take the lead.
I don't know. Yeah, it looks like traffic is playing their part in making it a little more difficult to make any moves. I will say I think that was a good move by Guillemette to come in when he did. He just had that, kind of the scare just like a lap or two previous to that. But it's a good time to come in and just kind of take a deep breath and kind of reset. Go ahead and take his fuel, help the car balance if he was having issues with that. And then he could just get out and run on his own and navigate traffic as he needs to and see if he can set some fast laps.
Yeah, Guillemette so far this season has had a season of two halves. The first two races of this season, he took the victory in the Pro Beneficiary category in LMP2. But the last two, it hasn't really gone too well for him. He lost out to Gregory Meismer 1 week ago at CTMP, and now he's on the back foot to try and get in front of Meismer for this race at Watkins Glen tonight. But the fight between Paris and Vicroy for the overall victory continues to heat up, very close to making contact. Coming out of turn number 6, these drivers are playing a very dangerous game with the lap traffic and with themselves. Ooh, a little bit of a slip-up, this must be said, from Skylar Vicroy coming out of the toe of turn number 7. Looks like Paris is not going to risk it, though, and I'm curious. Oh, there we go. It looked like he pulled
a little
off
peek.
Oh, he tried. Yeah, a little bit of a peek there, Charles, heading down into turn number 8. Actually kind of hurt him a little bit as he ran wide coming out of the corner. But Skylar Vicroy holding on to the lead virtually by the skin of his teeth. The ZFG Racing number 28 car has been feeling pressure ever since the drop of the green flag and a close call with himself and Calvi in that small little blast between turns number 10 and 11. Calvi back out on the racetrack after that damage he picked up. Not sure exactly how he picked up that damage. Must be some precision Deutsche engineering behind that Mercedes to cause that bumper to just pop off mysteriously. But nevertheless, Vicroy and Paris still covered by 3.5 tenths of a second. They have a pretty significant gap between themselves and Meismer right behind. So at this point in time, with most of the traffic dealt with currently, those two are just in a race of their own accord.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Tyler Manning in the pits, I was going to say he actually, when he came in, he was still only about 1.3 seconds behind Ull. So he's done a great job of just kind of matching Ull's pace and not letting him get away. So maybe if I'm looking at his pretty quick pit stop for him and for Carney as well. Carney's was very, very quick. So maybe a little strategy that he can get a good pit stop and get back out and maybe jump Ull, or at least be right on his tail when Ull pits.
I'm really curious how strategy is going to twist this race. Ull hasn't really received any sort of challenge. Oh my lord, that was very close. Heading through the S and Gene Kelly playing a very dangerous game with Sheps. Coming through that section there, that was a near disaster between those drivers side by side, nearly heading into the bus stop. These drivers playing an oh-so-dangerous game across the entirety of this field. Now the comment that I made at the very beginning seems a little bit ironic about these drivers seeing the halfway mark of the season rapidly approach and them starting to take it a little bit easy. I'll tell you what, folks, from what we've seen thus far, they are not. Gregory Meismer coming in from the lead of the Pro Beneficiary category as Corby Ull comes in from the lead in the GT3 class, currently running in 5th overall. This driver has just been oh so impressive thus far and going to try and continue that streak of victories today. Sosnowski in that McLaren has come in right behind. Ty Schuring coming in as well. Manning, that's a driver they need to keep our eyes on. Manning, the Canadian, currently running in 8th at the moment. How is he going to exit out in reference to the rest of the drivers around him? There is Tyler Manning. He's going to have some hot tires, and he's going to have a fight on his hands between himself and all. The real question is, how's that gap going to shake out? Meismer exiting the pits right now as well. Corby all going to be exiting with the lead in the GT3 category. However, it is not a comfortable gap for the driver that's been oh so dominant thus far this season.
No, it's not. He's got the gap just right out of second, so he actually did pick up a little time on the pit stop swap. So great job by Manning to get in there and get out. Even with a little bit quicker pit stoppage time, but Manning was actually a tenth faster from cone to cone. So great job by Manning to maximize his pitting. Is going to keep this battle close. Looks like maybe till the end of the race.
Yeah, I think a close battle in GT3 is exactly what the doctor ordered. Skylar Vickroy coming down pit lane, so that's going to give the lead overall to Connor Parise. So I'm curious how Parise is going to capitalize on this extra lap spent out there on the racetrack. Just based off what we saw in the GT3 field, there's definitely a discussion to have about whether or not the overcut or the undercut is going to be the strategy of choice for these drivers today. But as Vickroy hits his marks beautifully in the #1 pit stall around this racetrack, the driver that started this race on the front row, currently started this race in P2, the P2 pit box down the pit lane here at Watkins Glen tonight. Vickroy gonna be stopped in his box for a little bit less time than Meismer, but a little bit more time than Guillemette. So we'll see how things work out when Parise comes down pit lane. It was 18.1 seconds stopped in his box and 50.2 down in pit lane. So I'm curious how it's going to be for Parise. Parise, we kind of mentioned this point not terribly long ago, Charles, about Parise maybe trying to save some fuel or just genuinely having some difficulties trying to get past Vickroy. It would be a very smart call from Parise if he was saving fuel during that stint, and he'll be able to either come into the pits this time by and just have a much shorter run down pit lane, or he can try and stretch his legs a little bit and get towards the end of this. What in the world am I witnessing right now? That's Brandon Leonard in the '16 car dragging his bumper. I think it just randomly disappeared, so some UFO activities. Some aliens decide to take the bumper off a Porsche GT3 race car. This is some very strange stuff that we're seeing so far this evening. And here's a replay to see exactly what went wrong with Leonard. It was actually a spin for Sheps heading through turn number 9, and Leonard just being the unwilling suspect that just gets caught up in that small little schmozzle as Connor Parise has come into the pit lane from the lead of the race. Let's see how things shake out here, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what Parise can do here and see how it matches up with the other LMP2s. We'll say there's a gap now. 2.3 is the gap between Meismer and Guillemette, which is about what it was after Meismer's pit, so no big changes there. As we see with a stoppage time much quicker, 16.2 stopped and then 48.4 from cone to cone. So he gained a 1.8 seconds over Vickroy. And has taken the lead with Vickroy right behind him by 0.8 of a second.
There you go, Charles. You mentioned earlier on in this broadcast before you grabbed the green that pitch strategy was going to play such a big role in this race. We just saw that. Oh boy, we just saw that get put on full display here this evening as my tongue gets wrapped around itself about 14 times. A couple of moments ago, I may need some medical intervention if that happens a few more times between now and the end of this broadcast. But Parise pulling off a masterful strategy call to be able to take the lead in the LMP2 category, but I still don't think it's over because you've got lap traffic. The field is so spread out. I'm curious if we could possibly pull up the track map graphic. Josh, look at this. Oh my lord, the GT3 traffic not helping out Parise at all. And there you can see, thank you very much, Josh, for the graphic that we have on screen right now. There is no stone unturned around this racetrack, and there is no section of the racetrack that is just not entirely occupied, so it's causing these two to close up. There we go. We were thinking that it was game, set, match for Parise. However, it was a matter of probably about 8 inches separating those two cars heading through turn number 9 just a couple of moments ago. Both of them are driving their hearts off. Parise in the number 11 and Skylar Vickroy in the number 28 ZFG racing car. Both of them trying to take their second victory of the season and try and stomp their claim on the season title here from the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. Connor Parise, though, he's got a fight on his hands, but the big thing is he has to worry just as much about the car in his rearview mirror as he has to worry about the GT3 cars that he's rapidly approaching, and he's not going to catch them at a good point either. He's going to have to deal with them heading through the tight and twisties around this lap, making caught up, heading through the bus stop. This is not going to help out Parise at all. This is going to be a fantastic sight for the driver right behind Connor Parise, though. We're going to see what we saw earlier on in this race, Charles. So we're going to see these drivers in the LMP2 class, whether it be Parise or whether it be Vic Roy, push the envelope even more. Oh, and speaking of pushing the envelope, that's a BMW GT3 car going off right in front of the overall race leaders, thankfully not catching them out at all. But these drivers going to be pushing the limits even more now that we're coming towards the end of this race with less than 11 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, I think that was Dave Bell just trying to get out of the way, let those guys fight. Yeah, the gap is just going to be tight. I think this is going to be one of those that we'll be looking at them at the last lap and watch them battle for the victory. Probably going down into the bus stop, if I had my guess. That'll be where it is. Yeah, I think he just maybe carried too much speed, try to stay wide, gets out of the way nicely, lets those cars get around, and they can continue their race.
I am honestly shocked that I haven't even gone through half a glass of water. This racing has been so exciting. I haven't even had the opportunity to drink any water, so my vocal cords are going to be shot when everything is said and done after this race. But Connor Parise still wheeling that race car around this racetrack. Those two are still oh so close. 0.35 of a second between the two of them. And you got to keep in mind that the driver right behind, that being Gregory Meismer, he may play spoilers. He's currently on track to take the victory in the Pro Beneficiary category in the final overall podium spots. However, if these drivers come to blows, we may see a Pro Ben driver take the victory overall. That would be a fantastic storyline to end the first half of this season. But those drivers oh so close pace-wise. Lots of drivers battling up and down the field. Gotta say the fight in GT3 between Ola and Manning is still pretty close, with those two cars separated by about a quarter of a second at the moment. So Ola trying to withstand some pressure. The first time he's had to deal with any sort of challenge thus far this season, and it's coming from the Canadian of Manning. Those two cars covered by barely any air. The number 13 car of Tyler Manning reckons in the rearview mirror of Ole's car. I'm curious if Ole is not really happy with how things worked out for him when it comes to that strategy. This is definitely the closest anyone has really gone to Ole through the end of these races right now. And I think Manning has a really good shot to take the checkered flag in GT3 when everything is said and done, and play spoiler to the old dominance that we've seen thus far.
Yes, this is the first time he's really had anybody on his tail this late in the race. So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to a late race challenge, as we see Manning doing just a great job of getting that Porsche and just kind of staying in the slipstream of the Mercedes. You know, obviously the Mercedes, lots of straight line speed. Porsche really good through the corners. Of course, you still have to worry about that liftoff oversteer we've seen some guys struggle with today. So yeah, it's a great job by Manning. Cole obviously doing his normal great job, starting in front, leading from the front, and so now it's just a matter of seeing who's going to prevail. And this may be another one of those where we're on the last lap, seeing if anybody's going to try and make a move going down into the bus stop.
Yeah, who is going to be the victor in all of the classes that we have here from the Operation eMotorsports Racing League? At this point in time, it is a toss-up. It is less than half a second between the top two drivers in GT3. Meanwhile, I think we got a fight on our hands between Vic Roy and Parise. They're going to be side by side, heading down into turn number 8. Parise holding off the challenge for now. However, Vic Roy, he is feeling antsy at the moment. Last time by, those two cars were only separated by 0.02 of a second lap time wise, and in terms of their fastest laps, it's only 0.2 of a second between the two of them. I think Skylar Vic Roy, he is a man on a mission. He may not have Parise beat out lap time wise, however, he just wants to try and get that victory. He is being willed around this racetrack with spirit and spirit alone. I think we may possibly have a fight on our hands between Meismer and Gilmet, because those two cars aren't separated by a whole lot in the pro beneficiary category. That's going to be a pretty good storyline to keep our eyes on between now and the end of this race, which is coming up in barely any time at all. We have 38 coming up to 39 minutes on the clock of this 45-minute race. All the pit stops are done. They are out of the picture and out of the equation. It is just a straight-up fight between all of these drivers in all of the classes that we have from this race. And speaking of a fight, this was side-by-side between Ty Schuring and Bradley Beeman, and a beautiful move around the outside heading into the bus stop for Schuring to slip his way up into 4th in the GT3s.
Yeah, great job. I was watching that on the timing and scoring. Ooh, little slip there from the BMW of Schuring. So yeah, just a great, straight line speed from the BMW down the back stretch, and just takes it too wide, forces the issue through the bus stop. I think maybe Beeman backed out just a little bit. Just didn't want to have that battle right then with just a few minutes left in the race. I think about 5 minutes to go. So,
yeah, there is no time left for these drivers. In the grand scheme of things, 5 minutes is pretty much just a straight-up sprint to that checkered flag. So these drivers maybe going to break their elbows out a little bit and start to be aggressive. Look at that from Ole heading down the back straightaway into the bus stop. A little bit of a reactionary move. I think that may have been, it was definitely borderline from Corby. I'm not sure, maybe the race stewards may have a look at that when everything is said and done by Tyler Manning in that number 13 car. He's trying to do something that nobody has done thus far this season, and that is challenge Ole. I don't think we've seen Corby Ole get involved in a side-by-side fight thus far this season. He's been comfortable in these races. He's on the hot seat now. It's the fight between the 3 and the 13 with barely any time left on the clock. We have 3 laps left, we think, from this race. Is it going to be the 13 or is it going to be the 3 winning? I'll tell you what, with that big sideways snap that Manning had hang through turn number 7 not terribly long ago, looking good for Ole. Extended that gap a little bit. However, it's still about a half a second between those two at the front of the GT3 category. And speaking of a comfortable gap, the gap between Paris and Vicroy has increased in the LMP2 field as we see a battle in GT3s. Now 2.5 seconds between Paris and Vicroy. There may have been a mistake from Vicroy, or he just cooked the tires on that LMP2 car.
I think you're right. I was looking at the lap time. It was about a second and a half slower than Paris on the lap. Ooh. Was that Vicroy into the wall?
That I believe it may have been, yeah.
Oh, wow. So he may have damage from the thing that cost him the time on the lap previous. And so now he's just going to have to struggle to just try and get the car home.
Yeah, he's going to be dragging that thing across the checkered flag. Oh, nearly dragging his brakes into the back of, I believe that's Ty Schuring. That was right in front of him heading through turn number 2. That was a near disaster involving our 1-point race leader of Skylar Vicroy. This is still a very good race for him, as definitely a statement. I'm not sure what sort of expectations he had heading into this race, but he's definitely exceeded them. Qualified for this race in P2, was leading for a decent chunk. I believe he's led the most amount of laps of anybody thus far, considering the command he had at the very beginning, taking the lead of the race from the starting position of P2. Been good, hard-fought afternoon/evening for Skylar Vicroy. However, it looks like he's not going to be the one taking the victory. Meanwhile, Gregory Meismer going to try and go 2 for 4 and 2 out of the last 2 races. Meismer breaking up the Gomet dominance last time out at CTMP. Looks like he's going to try and get back-to-back victories in the pro beneficiary category, as he has a 3-second gap over himself and Gilmet towards the end of this race, with not a whole lot of time left on the clock. Less than 2.5 minutes left on that 45-minute long clock. So at this point in time, driver is going to see the white flag in a couple of moments' time. But the fights are still not cooling off, as we've got some side-by-side action between Little and Fendick running P18 and P19 overall.
Yeah, it's just late stages of the race, and was like, may be done on the LMP2 side, but it looks like we're still going to have a big battle for the GT win in the pro category. So we'll see. We get a little bit closer here. We should be. It's going to be real close to white flag this lap. To be where the LMP2 leaders are. There he is. Yeah, it may be white flag this time by.
I think it may be with Connor Parise, the overall race leader, going down the back straightaway in through the bus stop chicane for what we think is going to be the second to last time. Parise has put on a very good show at this point, still extending that gap over himself and Vicroy. It's now 2.9 seconds between himself and the driver, the number 28 car. Not sure what exactly happened with Skylar Vicroy, whether it was some sort of incident or just a big amount of mistakes that he's made towards the end of this race. I gotta say, looking at his lap times, he hasn't had too terrible of a drop-off. It's definitely been fluctuating for Skylar Vicroy, though. He's been teetering around that 133, 134, and 135 bracket throughout a decent chunk of this race, with a lap 24. The lap 25 period being one of the slowest lap times he's set thus far, so maybe that was when the incidents started to pile up. Maybe it's just been a series of small mistakes, but either way, Vicroy looking like he's going to come up second fiddle when everything is said and done from this race. We got side-by-side fights that we just saw heading off into turn number 1. That right there is the 313 car of Dave Bell. That was, I believe, Fendick right behind him and a little bit farther out the road. See what I did there? And that terrible segue out of the way. We're going to keep our eyes on the overall race leader of Parise, who I believe has taken the white flag. So only one more time around for Parise and the number 11 LMP2 car to take the checkered flag when everything is said and done. Got a 3.3 second lead between himself and Vicroy. Meanwhile, in the the GT3 class, my apologies, Olin Manning still pretty close, it must be said. Here you can see them right now. Only 0.3 of a second between these two drivers heading through the bus stop chicane for the final time. Both of them are pushing it to the absolute limit. Both of them pushing the track limits to the absolute limit. And if one of these drivers pick up a slowdown, it is going to be game, set, match. I gotta say, Manning losing a little bit of time heading through the carousel just a couple of moments ago. Got some traffic around them. That's Gilmet, the number 5 LMP2 driver, and Pro Ben. He got in the midst of that, actually broke up those two cars, and I think that may have been a game, set, match between those two. Parise has had a little bit of drama as that gap between himself and Vicroy has gone down from 3.3 seconds to 1.8. However, unless he has some sort of major drama befall him in the final few corners of this 45-man long race, I think that will probably be how they finish off. Parise gonna be rounding his way around the fast turn number 10, where he gets on the brakes into turn 11 for the final time. And Connor Parise, the driver that started this race from the pole, he wasn't running at the front since the very beginning of the race. However, he's running at the front at the end of it. Connor Parise wins at Watkins Glen. Vicroy going to finish right behind him, P2, and the fight between Ola and Manning is still close. Those two cars covered by barely any air after 45 minutes. 1.153 of a second when everything is said and done between Ola and Manning. That was the close fight that we were hoping for in the GT3 field, but Corby going to continue that clean streak throughout the first half of this season. The driver, the number 3 Mercedes, now 4 for 4 to kick this season off. But well done to Tyler Manning to try and give Corby a little bit of a jump scare towards the end there.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job by Tyler Manning to keep that battle close during the course of the race. And just in case you were wondering how the McLarens did, P3 and P4, Sosnowski and Beeman. Looks like the McLaren is a legit GT3 car. It looks like it's going to be dangerous for the remainder of the season. And then obviously congrats to Ian Carney, who I believe is the winner in the Ben class, and finishes P6 in the GT3s.
So I believe most of the cars have taken the checkered flag, still waiting for a decent chunk to cross that start-finish line, though. Gotta say, from a track like this, old school in its design with not very forgiving runoff areas, the fact that we went through that race as clean as we did, I gotta say, well done to a lot of these drivers. Indeed. And Charles, I think, I can't remember whether I think we were talking about this on the air. Ooh, some nice donuts. Donuts in the gravel from Gregory Meisberg ends up winning in the pro beneficiary category. But Charles, I'm not sure if we were talking about this on the air or off the mics a couple of weeks ago. A lot of these drivers, they're not driving with a normal wheel and pedal. Some of these drivers are using hand controls. So I gotta say, credit where credit's due to a lot of these drivers running in the beneficiary category. Some former veterans running with some hand controls and running I wouldn't say an abnormal, a modified sim
Yeah.
rig. The fact they're
Correct.
able to tackle a race like this and just go through it as clean and as quick as they did, gotta say, lots of talent in
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
field.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fantastic to watch these guys battle week in and week out. And yeah, it's, I'm shocked at the ability, how they adapt, and as would say in the military, adapt, improvise, and overcome. I believe that's the way the Marines would say that. But so yeah, it's even if they're using an altered setup, still obviously very, very good sim racers.
Yeah, they were fantastic sim racers and fantastic people to have a chat with, and hopefully we'll be able to have a chat with some of them when everything is said and done before we wrap things up from this broadcast. But firstly, I think we'll take a look at the results with that nice smoke show that we had going down the start-finish straightaway just a couple of moments ago. You can see the tire marks laid down by some of these drivers that did well. And speaking of a driver doing well, Connor Parise takes his second victory of the season. The driver of the number 11 car won the second race of the season at Road America, and he wins the fourth race of the season tonight at Watkins Glen. Skylar Vickroy in the number 28 got finished right behind him, P2. Only 1.8 seconds between those cars when everything is said and done. Gregory Meismer gonna finish this race in third, the top running Pro Ben LMP2 driver. Tyler Gilmet going to round out the LMP2 field. Meanwhile, in the GT3s, Corby all wins it when everything is said and done, continuing that streak for the driver of the number 3 car. Tyler Manning certainly gave him one hell of a challenge, though. He's going to end up in 6th right behind him. Chad Sosnowski, in one of the only McLarens in this field, going to finish in 7th. Overall, in P3 in the GT3s, Bradley Beamon, another McLaren, got finished right behind in 4th in the GT3s. Ty Schuring finishing in 9th. And Ian Carney going to round out your overall top 10.
Yep. In P11, we've got Gene Kelly, Josh Sheps in 12th, Tanner Masters in 13th, and I believe second in the beneficiary class, Jason McSparron in 14th, Brandon Leonard in 15th. Brandon Mateo gets the final step of the podium in the beneficiaries in 16th. Jacob Little, Dan Fendick, Luis Rios, Richard Davenport round out your top 20. Further down, Dave Bell, Matt Iott, P21 and 22. 23rd is Anthony Calvi, John Hicks in 24th, Tyler Reed 25th, Jake Porter 26th, Rui Pereira in 27th, Russell Elizondo in 28th, Charles St. Pierre 29th, Rick Hazlitt in 30th, Tyler Beeman in 31st, and rounding out your 32 car field is Elliott Whitfield.
Alrighty, there we go. The results now taken care of, and I think we can move into some driver interviews to wrap things up here on Apex Racing TV. And with this broadcast being simulcasted on the Operation Motorsports YouTube channel, I think the first driver that I'm going to bring in to have a quick little chat is a driver that I'm sure wasn't very happy when everything is said and done. He was very happy because we saw him do some donuts. It's Greg Meismer who gets another victory in the Pro Beneficiary category. It's now 2 in as many weeks. Greg, talk us through that race that we just saw at Watkins Glen.
I think I got lucky. If I'm to be honest with you, Tyler had a little off track there through the carousel towards the end of the race, and yeah, that got it for me. I thought he was going to have me when he took that early pit stop.
Well, I think overall, though, it was still a very hard-fought show for you, and I'm curious if you took a look at that replay of the off-track that Tyler had. He missed the outside Armco barrier by a matter of 8 inches. I think that may be a very interesting thing for you to take a look back on if you're still loaded into the iRacing session. But still, 2 victories out of 4 so far this season. 2 of you have now taken the lion's share of the victories thus far. So now heading into the second half, what are your thoughts going into the second half of the season?
Practice more. Try to get more fast laps. I think I took the points lead with my 1 fast lap last week, so we were just talking about that in the cooldown room.
I mean, hey, taking the points lead certainly can't be upset about that at all. And we're going to be going to another old school American track at Road Atlanta in just 1 week's time. So how do you think that race is going to be for you?
It's one of my favorite tracks, but traffic is going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it's even more so of an issue that we had here at Watkins Glen, that is going to be a very odd show because we saw lap traffic playing a huge role in the race that we just saw. But I'm sure Road Atlanta is going to be absolutely fantastic. I'm sure you drivers are going to put on a great show. So, Greg, congratulations on the victory in the Pro Beneficiary category. And before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Obviously, you guys again for putting on the broadcast every week. Y'all do an amazing job every time. Operation Motorsport for getting us all together every Tuesday, and then ZFG, my team, and also Core Motorsports and IMSA. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the kind words there, Gregory. Congratulations on the victory, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack to kick off the second half of the season at Road Atlanta in 1 week's time. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you.
And that was Gregory Meismer getting his second victory in as many weeks. And Charles, we've got a whole lot of drivers waiting in that interview waiting area. So who would you like to have a chat with now?
Well, let's talk to our GT beneficiary winner, Ian Carney. Ian, congratulations on the win in GT for the beneficiaries. So you had a really good qualifying. I think you were up in the top 3 or so, and end up finishing 6th overall in the GT class. So obviously had a really good day on the track. So talk about your race.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I was pretty focused on sticking with Colby and Tyler. I believe the guy in front of me was. I was pretty focused, and I almost took out some of the LMPs, not paying attention to where they were coming up around me. So it was more about managing my disadvantages this evening to try to maintain my position. I knew I was a little bit faster than the guy behind me, but any small mistake could take that away from me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those tracks that seemingly a mistake could just come out of nowhere, especially in their certain sections that we talked about during the race. So next up, we've got Road Atlanta, another old school track. So how are you feeling about that?
Oh man, coming up over that hill in the first section, I don't know if it's turn 3 or 4, but man, that thing scares me every time. It's just kind of like blind and you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean.
But other than that, I love the track. Yeah, it's a blast.
Yeah, how you think it's going to be handling the LMP2s as they come through?
Oh man, I don't know if it'll be worse or better, but I guess it's a 50-50 shot if you ask me. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a challenge, and really appreciate you guys putting this on, like I said before. But it's been such a good time.
Well, we're enjoying it also. So I'll let you go ahead and give your thanks and shout outs before we let you go.
Yeah, I want to thank my wife for allowing me to make bad financial decisions and buying this big rig and whatnot. I'd like to thank my team, 4Wide Motorsports. Our liveries have been absolute hot fire these past few weeks because our one guy in there, he's the man. But tons of other people. I don't want to take up too much time.
All right. Well, thank you, Ian, and we'll look forward to seeing you do battle next week.
Thanks.
Right there was who. I think I may have a small little connection issue. I think have a small little connection issue here. So as I try and get.
As Ron is working through his connection issues, let's bring in Tanner Masters, who finished 2nd in the beneficiary class in GT. Tanner, this is Charles up at how was the Ford out there on Watkins Glen?
Oh wow, well, it was really good the first half,
So what happened in the second half?
Well, so we were actually just talking about that down in the waiting room, but It felt around, after the pit, it felt like the tires started to fall off around the last 10 minutes, and I don't know how much it was caught, but there was some in Sector 3 where I really just couldn't get the nose to bite in. But no, the car felt fantastic. I really enjoyed driving the Mustang, especially coming off the P1 finish from last week. I've got a bounding amount of confidence in the car itself, so it's been a really good run. But it was just like 2 weeks ago where Ian was gone, and there was no catching it. So,
well, okay, so we've got through Watkins Glen, and we're headed to Road Atlanta for the next round. Have you put any laps down yet with the Mustang at Road Atlanta?
Nothing in the Mustang yet. I've been playing around with the Dallara recently because I've been doing the prototype stuff on the official side. So I've been kind of putting laps around in that, and I haven't really touched Road Atlanta or the Mustang or the combination of the two. But hopefully tomorrow we can hop in and get cracking. I know we did really well. I think last
Okay.
I did as well. I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right. All right. Cool. So, okay. Well, Tanner, I'm not going to ask you to repeat everything that you just said that we didn't hear. So I'll just let you. I'll let you give your thanks and shout outs, and we'll let you go for tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. As always, biggest shout out and thank you to Operation Motorsport for putting this on and allowing us to be here and giving us the avenue to not only get our therapy in person, but like when we're stuck, kind of in our home space, to be able to do it here online and see the guys. Other than that, man, I really don't have much. I mean, always to the guys. Everybody that was at the RR last year that's here today, they know who they are, and I appreciate hanging out with you guys again. So yeah, thanks for having me, Charles.
All right. Thank you, Tanner. We'll see you next week.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
Tanner Masters, who finished P2 in the beneficiary class in GT. And we got Ron back is the next question.
I would certainly hope so.
All right.
The power of a verbal threat issued out to my internet suppliers, so I will not say, in case they want to send me a large amount of money. Apex Racing TV is not affiliated with any internet suppliers here in the United States of America. This serves me right for having a Wi-Fi router, which is a serial box. So I'm not sure, considering the connection issues that either Discord has been having or all of us have been having simultaneously, for the point that we start sounding like robots if we start talking for a while. I think we will try not to bring in any more drivers to have a chat, just because we don't want them to do their best robot impression towards the end of this broadcast. So, Charles, I'll wrap things up by asking you the question that we asked those drivers. Next up is going to be Road Atlanta. Fantastic track. You've had the privilege of visiting that track for the Petit Le Mans in real life.
Yeah.
How do you think that race is going to be?
Well, I think everybody's got the right frame of mind. It's going to be, we've got essentially all the twists and turns that we've had the last 2 weeks with CTMP and Watkins Glen. Some very blind corners, some high-speed corners, and then you've got the landing strip backstretch, which we can touch on next week, the history behind that, if we want to do that. So, no, it's going to be a very challenging race. Obviously, there'll be lots of, I think, extra practice as we're gearing up for the iRacing Petit Le Mans special event. So there may be some guys that had a little more practice than they normally would, just in preparations for that as well. So I'm looking forward to a good race. Obviously, obviously lap traffic is always the issue, right? Is knowing where and when to make those passes. And for the GTs, it's just trying to run a predictable line to allow those guys to get by. So, there'll be mistakes made. There always are, and hopefully won't be anything too bad, and we'll have us a good race.
That is going to be a fantastic show in 1 week's time, and you can catch all the action here on Apex Racing TV and also the simulcast on the Operation Motorsports YouTube channel. And if you want to stay up to date of all the stuff going on here on Apex, remember to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell just so you can not miss out on the rest of the racing action that we have coming up from this season. The season is now officially halfway in the books, but we still got a fantastic schedule of races to look forward to. Road Atlanta in 1 week's time, followed by Spa, then a 1 week break for the actual real-life Motul Petit Le Mans, followed by Sonoma and Sebring to bring this season to a close. But as for bringing tonight's broadcast to a close, hopefully without any more connection issues, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a fine job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you all again wherever it is in the not-too-distant future.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.